Hi, and welcome to episode 6 of The Winter I Went to the Cottage, our heated rivalry rewatch. I did it. I am Catherine McKenzie,
I'm Heather Webb.
and we are two USA Today bestselling authors. And like many, we've had our this summer I Turned Pretty obsession transformed into a heated rivalry obsession. The show is steeped in Easter eggs, callbacks, and lots of Conrad Fisher level yearning. Plus, what are we calling them? This week, it's more like intimate love scenes. Now that season 2 has been confirmed, we're going to watch season 1 and react to the show. Sorry, this will be a limited series. Please continue to like, subscribe. We will come back as more things appear in this universe. As a reminder, though this is the last episode, I had seen everything and Heather was exercising her patience, but now she's free to reheat as many times as she wants.
Reheat.
Reheat. So, yeah, so there are spoilers. If you haven't watched episode 6, go watch that before you listen to this, for sure. Some updates on the show, the cast, etc. We had all of my worlds colliding at the Lunar New Year event in New York, where Hudson and Yerenha from Bridgerton and Lola Tung from The Summer I Turned Pretty were all there and dancing together. And people are making graphs of all the intersections between the show because they're all Asian characters dating white men. 2 of them are dating bisexual men. They all have cottages. The intersections are very funny. There's letter writing and yearning and everything. So anyway, I was enjoying that content. We also found out from HBO that in the US, each episode now has 10 million viewers per episode,
Wow.
which is incredible. If you Google heated rivalry, you'll see some texts between Lily and Jane that have been adapted a little bit up at the top of the screen, which is quite cute. And Rachel Reid, the writer of the books, was excited about that. She also said on a podcast this week that the next book may or may not be the last book. She didn't think she was going to write a 3rd book, so she's not excluding writing a 4th book. Of course, it's publishing. Hello. There's going to be a 4th book, guys. For sure. For sure. Whether or not there's a 4th season of the show. I feel like I can guarantee that, right, Heather? No?
I would think so. Although I think, doesn't she have Parkinson's?
She
Or
does.
something?
Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
she has Parkinson's.
if things get tough, then I could see where maybe that
Sure.
would prevent her.
Maybe.
Hopefully her health is good and she can.
Yeah. I think we mentioned on an earlier episode that she lives in a remote town in Nova Scotia and hadn't been getting the full treatment she needed, but because of the show, Parkinson's
she can.
expert reached out to her, and
That's great.
so I think it's a little more manageable, and she's finding other ways to write, I think learning voice to text writing, which I can't imagine having to do that. It would be such an odd shift in
It
process.
is odd. I've been doing it a lot with my texting, as you know, because you get these mangled text messages from me, but I can't imagine writing a book like that. That'd be
No,
hard.
I even tried. I tried once, I had this idea and I just tried for a chapter and I was like, this doesn't even sound like me somehow. Spoken me and written me are completely different people.
They are.
So strange. But anyway, all right, let's get into.
Can I add one more
yeah,
thing?
please.
So Hudson Williams, and I don't tend to be as much in the sort of the gossip sphere, but a little bit. Hard launched his girlfriend on his Instagram account. I saw that.
He did.
People Magazine posted that.
Oh yeah, he
So
did.
I was like,
For
I'm gonna
Valentine's
look
Day.
at all the pictures. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is cute.
Yeah, and I mean, I think he had kind of done that before when he posted about his trip to Italy because she was in a bunch of the photos, but I guess he made it even clearer than he did the last time, and they've been together since 2020. He also posted a photo with Hudson, with Connor, with the little heart drawn around
Yes.
Connor, which is cute. But I think they're all friends together. They're not in a throuple, guys, okay? I mean, people are also, there's even an article, I can't read it because I don't have a subscription in Collider about the toxicity of the fandom. I think
Always is.
there always is.
Any fandom brings the crazies out sometimes, I think.
It does. And I've seen, I guess I really only got into online fandom with Bridgerton season 2. And I saw that toxicity, which I continue to see. People are defending Kate Bridgerton as if it's a real person and their relative and are mad that she is not in her home and other people are having parties in her home. And I'm like, did you watch the show? She chose to leave. But anyway, it's just bizarre.
It's strange.
It's very strange. And in this fandom too, ultimately these are real people. They're playing characters. They have personal lives that you may or may not like, but that's not really any of your business. And demanding that things be in the next episodes. I think we all have things we wish, we liked scenes from the book, oh, it would have been nice if we had this. But I remember somebody saying online during the Summer I Turned Pretty psychosis that if you're this obsessed with a show, it means they're doing something right, right? So like just
Enjoy it.
enjoy, and don't be
Yeah.
a loon, loonies.
Which we're gonna talk about later.
Yes. Oh my God. I laughed so hard the first time that happened. It was like late at night too. And I'm like, I can't wake anybody up, but I'm laughing so hard. Okay. So let's get into the episode called The Cottage. It feels intimate and like a honeymoon, and that is what Jacob Tierney wanted to go for. A lot of we'll talk about it when we go through sort of like the scene by scene, but a lot of the episode is even shot very differently than the rest of the show. The musical choices are different. The lighting is different, all that stuff. And it's such a nice change of pace after how much went down in episode 5 to like have this sort of slower, right?
Yeah, it just took away all the guardrails and just let them be themselves. I loved it.
Yeah. And I love how in your prediction last week, you were like, there's going to be conflict and it's going to end on a cliffhanger. And none of that happened. But yet there were still surprises. Like it still managed to surprise you, I think. So.
It did. Yeah. I was like, no. What particular scene I texted you.
Yeah. Okay. So we start the episode with Scott Hunter's speech. I think, last episode I mentioned that there was something wrong with the timeline in the Scott Hunter part of this universe. And you can actually see it in his speech because the closed captioning says one thing and he says something else. So the closed captioning says this year, and then I think they realized like, oh no, he met Kip in 2014. So it's not in 2017. What he actually says is like when I met Kip or something like that. So anyway, it's a nice speech. I think it's a nice way to externalize what it must be like to be closeted in that kind of environment and have somebody who went through it speak to it, in a exposition dump, but it makes sense in the environment in which it's given. And I think that that's also one of the ways that the Scott Hunter story plays out in the show because he's older and just his personality allows him to like talk about what it's been like to be him. And then also because he's on the other side of it in a way that we can't get from Ilya and Shane at this point. So I think it's a little out of time of the rest of the episode, but I still think it's necessary. It's a necessary moment.
Yeah, no, I think so too. I felt like it ran a little bit long, but I get the point, for sure.
Yeah. And nice to see Kip, watching at the bar with his friends.
Yeah.
Something I forgot to point out, the bartender who has like a crush on Kip.
Oh,
he's actually a character in one of the other books.
Is he?
Yeah.
Okay.
Troy, I think his name is. I think his name is Troy. Yeah. So he has a book. He's in a book. So we'll see if we see more of him in future seasons.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Okay. So then I love when Shane is picking Ilya up at the airport and Shane arrives looking like the Terminator. Like he's in black. Dude, you think you're not going to stand out? Like,
I didn't even notice that. I just thought he looked suave. I was like, money buys good looking clothes and all that.
Yeah, I think he's in like a Tom Brown top and his normal sweatpants that he wears throughout the show, but like his baseball hat and which may even be a Boston Raiders hat, his sunglasses and his black suitcase. He's just like, I'm here on a mission. Obviously, Shane is nervous in the car to pick him up.
Yeah, you see him hit steering wheel.
Yeah. He's very nervous.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's funny because the house that they go to is 2 hours away from the Ottawa airport and much closer to the Montreal airport. So my theory is that, Shane's like, if Ilya Rozanov flew into Montreal, everyone would immediately associate that with Shane for some reason. And so somehow flying into the Ottawa airport, which makes no logistical sense whatsoever, is their way of hiding. I mean, guys, you're millionaires. Just charter a plane. Fly into a private airport. I just don't understand. Whatever. And then they have their little drive in the car where they have some interesting dialogue, I think, where like Ilya's got his little walls up, I think, and is talking about, when Shane says like, it's very relaxing at the cottage. He's like, oh, is that what we're going to do? Relax. And Shane's like not being dissuaded at this point by that. He's like,
no, he's not. He's like, I know how you feel about me. So yeah.
Right. Well, he mostly
He does
knows.
and he doesn't.
He
Like,
does and
yeah.
he doesn't. Yeah. But he's like, no, I want to relax with you. It would be nice to relax with you for once. Because that car ride in the car is like the first time they've been alone together for 2 years.
And
Like for
it's
2
quite awkward
hours.
between them a little bit.
A little bit awkward between them. It's the first time they've been together, alone together for 2 hours, like since the tuna meltdown, right? So, and that, they were having sex and whatever, but this is just like, what did they talk about in this car ride? I want to know.
And Ilya, he thanks him for inviting him, which
Mhm.
I found funny as well, because that's so stiff and formal for Ilya. Like, he wouldn't normally,
Yeah. Well, Ilya is very different in this whole episode, really.
He is. He is.
Much more, well, he is relaxed and he sort of lets his walls down and lets that persona, that public Ilya Rozanov persona mostly tumble away, which is nice. But yeah, even admitting that he's terrified is interesting,
It is interesting. It was surprising. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's all out there.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I don't know if you noticed this, and I didn't notice it the first several times I watched the scene until I saw somebody online put it out. But when they arrive at the cottage, it's then a one shot all the way through the house, all that dialogue until they get on the couch. And that whole scene on the couch is just a one shot with a Steadicam following them. So that means no cuts.
Yeah, I
And we
didn't
get,
notice.
yeah, and we get there's no like different angles. And like, that's why sometimes Ilya disappears out of the shot as we're following Shane through the kitchen and then they come back together. And it is so intimate. Such an interesting way of creating intimacy, of just having that one camera sort of follow them around. And I
That
think
is
the scene is over 3 minutes long. So
interesting.
yeah, it's well done. I mean, and Shane is like, Shane, and I have a well, it has good water. He's never
I
seen
think
more
he's fucking
autistic
great.
or on the spectrum than he does in that scene, Like
Yeah.
if you're thirsty.
It's getting that awkwardness kind of out of the way,
Yes. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
nervous. He's nervous. Yeah, but even in his nervousness, he's like, he got Cokes for Ilya, so he noticed what Ilya drinks and he got what Ilya wants. And someone pointed out there's Cheetos in the like snack bowl, which there's no way Shane eats Cheetos. So he got those for Ilya because Ilya likes junk food. And yeah, Ilya's like, I don't care about the water. And I also love when he goes, oh, I had this built. I just love the way he says that. And then Ilya's like,
I know.
I know. Like, you think I don't know about you, but I do know about you. And
And
then
it's all open, isn't it? Like, I just
Yes.
noticed, like, everything was wide, completely see-through in the
Yes.
open,
Yes.
from all angles. A great
Yes.
reflection of this entire episode.
Yeah. And there's many funny little inside jokes because like, nobody's anywhere near the house, but you can see there's like another house just down the lake, which you can actually see. And there's somebody's boat garage is also there visible. And then this whole narrative they have about like, when Ilya's like, oh, I need a king size bed. Oh, all the beds are king size and I need an ensuite. And then they go into the room and it's a double bed with no ensuite, but it's just because of where they shot it, so.
Yeah.
But all that banter is very cute. And then of course, but even before we get there, when Shane is like, oh, well, it's been a while. So like, let's slow down. And then Ilya confesses that he hasn't been with anyone. So last time they saw each other was in February and we're now probably in
Summer.
June. You were in July, I think. So yeah, they haven't seen each other since February and that's when Shane got his bell rung. Like that hospital is the last time they'd been in a room together. And Shane is just like, really? You haven't been with anyone? Yeah. And then he says to me the funniest line of this entire show, which is me either. It's like, yeah, Shane, we know. Shane, we know you haven't been. First of all, you just said that. You just told him that it's been a while. And then, no, I haven't been with anyone since last time either. Yeah, we know, Shane. We know. And Ilya knows too, even if he remains jealous of Rose Landry for interesting reasons.
I liked in that scene too the let's be honest with each other, they said this whole time, and about what we really think and feel, and
Yeah. And
Yeah.
Ilya's like, I'll try.
Yeah, he's ready to rise to the occasion, I think.
In more ways than one. Yes. The double
Dirty girl.
entendres. Yeah, but again, it's Shane is pushing right now. Shane is like back to being the one sort of pushing the emotional intimacy, which is interesting. And And I think we'll get a little insight into why that is in a couple of scenes. And then they go into the bedroom and they have the very cute, like where he's like pretending to be the bellboy. And, and then when Ilya says, I think I know how the staff likes to be treated after all these years, it's like, okay, so cute. They're so cute. And then Shane wanted to close the blinds and Ilya is like, hell no. And I love that. I love that it's like, no.
We're letting it all hang out, buddy.
We are letting it all hang out. Yeah, it's all out in the open. And of course, there was a foreshadowing in the car of like, what about your parents? No, I've told them I'm on a silent retreat. And just the way Ilya is always so charmed by Shane. I love how he's so charmed by Shane's little quirks,
Well, Shane is just, he's so sweet natured and so
Yes.
honest and
Yes.
so hardworking, and he's caring. He's like everything Ilya absolutely needs to feel
Sure.
safe.
Yeah.
So that casting, that story setup is perfect, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I said this way back maybe in episode 1, but that's sort of a classic thing in rom-coms, romances, is that like the other person has to have the thing that they need to be whole. So like
Yep.
Ilya also has stuff that Shane needs, which is like that confidence and
being who he is.
Yeah, being who he is, exactly, and being okay with that. And then they come out, Shane's at the barbecue. I am 100% sure Ilya is now wearing Shane's clothes, which he does many times in this episode, because like that shirt doesn't fit him or seem like something Ilya would have. The polo, the red polo and the shorts.
I didn't notice, but that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And then at the barbecue, he's like, why are you making 8 burgers? Well, the recipe called for 8. Who has a recipe for burgers?
Aw. Shane follows the rules.
He follows the rules. And then the cute, like, leave me alone. And he's like, no. It's just like, I'm not leaving you alone. Then they have a more serious discussion over lunch. And really the only bump that they have, I feel like, in their ability to be open with one another. Ilya is like, okay, well, tell me about your family. But like, he does know a bit about the parents, obviously, and he remembers everything, like, oh, your dad, it's where you got you're boring. He reads the New Yorker, which is a callback to the bathroom scene in episode 2 years ago. Like, they remember everything about each other, which I love. And then he's like, no, do they know about you? Like, do they know you're gay? And he's like, well, I can't, no, I haven't told them. And he's like, it's your fault. I haven't told them, basically. And I think there's a bit of a misunderstanding here. Ilya is like, again, tries to make light of it. And it's like, oh, you don't have to tell them every guy that you're fucking. But I think personally, I think that Shane here, and I'm curious what you think, is like, no, I'm only with one person. So if I tell my parents I'm gay, they're going to ask if I'm dating anyone. And I don't want to lie. And I can't tell them it's you. So that's what I think he's trying to convey with his face.
That's kind of what I gathered as well. Yeah.
Right. Because we don't totally get his face. We're getting a side view of him, but Ilya understands and it's like, oh, this is my fault, he's like, yeah. And I think it's a little bit also like, it's your fault, not that I'm gay, but it's your fault that I'm in this situation. Like, I wouldn't have gone after my rival, even though he's the one who introduces himself to Ilya, and seeks him out time and again. But so, yeah, I think it's interesting. And then he kind of pulls away and Ilya's sort of like, what did I do here? Like, I messed up a little bit in this conversation. So Shane is still, I think that's the thing about his parents. That's like the biggest hurdle for him in the immediate future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to let them down. He's so terrified of letting them down.
Yeah. Yeah. And then they're watching the fire. Canada is fun.
That whole scene too, where maybe it's the morning after that. I think it's that day, though, where he goes out and he's looking at the lake.
No, that's later. That's after.
I love that scene.
Yeah. No, but they're watching the fire, and this is where Ilya, Ilya is telling Shane about his family. Like, he finally opens up about what happened to his mother, that she took her own life when he was 12. He found her, but she was such a great mom and so funny and beautiful, and that his dad was so hard on her. And it's just like, oh my God, the layers of trauma go very deep. And then this gets interrupted by a Loon call,
which was hilarious.
Hilarious. Oh my God. I haven't laughed that hard in a while. What the fuck is that?
Is that a wolf? That was a wolf bird?
Wolfbird, stupid Canadian wolfbird. And actually that happens before the serious conversation, but again, during the serious conversation. But I love that, like, their little flirty exchange where he's, Shane, like, does a Loon call, probably audio dubbed in, but anyway, and he's like, "Oh, you speak Loon now?" And he's like, "Yes, fluent." So again, he's calling back to one of their previous conversations where Ilya says he could learn Russian in a week and be fluent. And then he's like, "I hate you." And he's like, "No, you don't." You know? And then, Ilya doesn't want to go inside. Like, he goes from being like, "Why are we sitting here watching the fire?" to like, "Okay, I get it now." Like, with his
This
head
is
in,
awesome.
I know, his
Yeah.
head in Shane's lap, and so sweet. And then the next morning they wake up together, and then
Which is sweet.
he tells Shane, "I like you," which is always the prelude to "I love you," right? But
Yeah, for
he
sure.
just said, "I hate you" the night before, right? So, like, he
He's trying to warm him up, warm himself up.
he's warming himself up to the "I love you" for
Yeah,
sure,
yeah.
for sure. And then they're playing the video game, and something,
Which
again,
was
it was funny with such bros. But something that somebody pointed out is that, like, why does Shane have the version of the game that has Ilya's face on it? And
well,
people are speculating. Yeah, it's like, oh, the only way he could have a picture of Ilya in his house was to have the video game with Ilya's face on it. So, but Ilya's like, "Yeah, this is me on the game. Like, I'm gonna beat you. It's my game." And then Ilya, the little minx, when he gets to that phone call from Hayden. I mean, poor Hayden. Like, is Hayden that naive? We'll see. We'll find out.
yeah, yeah.
We'll
I
find
mean,
out.
I don't know. I mean, Shane is kind of a private dude, so I think he could probably get away with it for a while.
Yeah, we'll find out. But I think what happens at the end of that scene is super important because Shane is like, "Why was that so hot?" And Ilya's like, "'Cause you like to be bad." And Shane's like, "Wait, no, 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 no. That's not what this is." And maybe at the beginning, but not now and not for a long time. And it's like, okay, here we go. We're getting there. We're getting there. We're getting there. And then, of course, Ilya makes a joke about, "Oh, so you love Hayden," because he said, "Love you, man," at the end of the conversation. But yeah, it's just, that's a good, like, they're being competitive in their little way, and then they're being intimate, and then they're having intimacy, an intimate conversation. It's nice, a nice little up and down of emotions there. And then they're playing soccer, probably still the same day, though Shane is in slightly different clothing. Ilya's in the same clothing, and in the books, they're actually in his, like, private hockey rink here, but obviously they did not have a budget for a private hockey rink. But they're playing soccer, and Ilya brings up the fact that he is about to be out of contract in a year, and that he's thinking of coming to a Canadian team. And then Shane's like, and he's like, "Not Montreal, not Montreal." And he starts talking about the passport, and Shane, this is
It's
where,
like suddenly this is very serious. Yeah.
yes. But also Shane, this is where Shane's spectrum, like, obtuseness comes in, right? Just like,
Mhm.
he's not getting what Ilya is laying down here. Like, Ilya's like, "Can you help
I'm gonna
me?"
make a major life change to be closer to you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I see my future in Canada, right? Like, that's why he's saying Canadian team. Like, the options for Canadian team, there are, I think, 6 teams. So it would have been Montreal, no, Ottawa, Winnipeg, Vancouver, Calgary, and Edmonton. So some very far away options.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's just interesting, that he's going there. And then we get to the couch conversation where they're facing each other on the couch. And Ilya just, like, rocks Shane's world. Like, "I could marry," he's like in his phone, like, "I could marry Svetlana." And Shane's like, "What?"
Shane gets teary-eyed when he asks him not to.
I know. His
Oh, I
little
was
head.
like, Ilya, that's mean. I know I think he's, again, it's like it feels like a cultural barrier, sort of, where he's a little bit kind of stringing Shane along, but really he's trying to get to the point of saying, I could do this, but this is really what I want.
Yeah.
That's the vibe I got.
I think there's a bunch of different ways to read that scene. So, like, first of all, at that time in Canada, gay marriage had been legal for a long time. So, like, he and Shane could get married. He doesn't, I mean, obviously, there would be a privacy issue potentially, though way less, much harder to get that kind of information in Canada. If you went and got a marriage license, not sure we get out. Because it's not like, so we have way stricter privacy laws here. So there's not searchable databases and stuff like that for that kind of thing. If you want a copy of someone's marriage certificate, you have to be the person, or it has to be like an official purpose. So anyway, and I'm trying to remember, when did Obergefell happen in the US? It's just after this, I think, right? So some people have interpreted this, and I think in the book it is more like that Ilya is like, "Marry me," like,
Yeah, like there's this cultural barrier there a little bit where he's trying to be like, this isn't really what I want, but he's talking through, like, I think he's trying to get Shane on the same page as him. And Shane is,
yeah,
again, that obtuseness is kind of getting in the way.
yeah. Well, and when he sort of sings songs like "She Would Help Me," you know? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and then so now they have, again, their conversation about Ilya's bisexuality, which does mirror the tuna meltdown conversation, and Ilya, I'd be a little more careful if I were you. Remember the last time you spoke about
Yeah.
this? Shane ended up leaving in a panic. But he does, he does. He's like, I have a problem. And like, well, what's the problem? And then he's like, oh, yes, I'm with all these women. I like women. And Shane's just like looking away. He can't even look at him when he's saying that. And he's like, but I'm always thinking about this slow hockey player with beautiful freckles.
Oh, I love that line. I wrote that down.
It's a great line.
So cute.
And a weak backhand. And then Shane's like, a weak backhand. And then he's like, I'm always wishing they were him. It's a problem, yes. And then Shane has kind of now become Ilya in Tampa, where he's like, okay, I think I know what he means, but I have to be sure. He's like, do you want that problem to go away? And then he says, no, I don't ever want that problem to ever go away. He says ever twice.
Yeah.
And their little feet are touching, and he's like
I saw
reassuring
that.
Shane, right? Like he's reassuring him, like, no, you dummy. Don't you get what I'm trying to tell you? Like, dude, it's been 9 years. I don't care about these other girls. Like, I'm just worried. And the subtext of all of this is that if it comes out, and he's told this to Shane in Tampa, if it comes out that he's gay, he could get his passport revoked. So he's like only in the US, like he feels precarious in his ability to be in the US. And he's thinking about like, if they're going to come out, if they're going to be a real couple, he can't do that while he's on a Russian passport. That's what he feels. So that's why he's bringing all of this up. It's like, I want this to be real and to be long term, and I can't have that if I am on a Russian passport. The two are connected for him. And so then we have the scene at night, right? Where like Shane's like, I've clearly been up all night.
Right? Thinking.
With the
This is what we have to do.
Yeah, the hamster wheel's going. And it's interesting that he, like, when he wakes him up, he says, okay, I have another plan, which makes it sounds like he had they discussed something else. So Shane said, we're going to come up with something
there
else,
was the
right?
Svetlana backup. I think
Yeah.
that's maybe what he means. Like,
Maybe.
they'll marry her, or she, there's other ways to do this.
Right. Because he's like, we'll think of something else, right? When he's teary-eyed and like, don't marry Svetlana, which is in the pantheon of all these shows. There's a huge supercut that's like all people saying over many TV shows, like, don't marry him, which also happened in The Summer I Turned Pretty. So, it's funny. It fits in like where they sort of dip into the trope and then back away from in this show. So it's like the don't marry him, marry me trope, but he doesn't say the second part of it. In that moment, he doesn't say be with me. He just says we'll figure something else out. And then here we have his very detailed 10-point plan in the middle of the night. It's like, you play for Ottawa, I play for Montreal. And Ilya's like, can you get to the fucking point? I don't know what you're saying.
Like, I'm half asleep. What do you need?
What do you mean? And even when he's like, okay, we'll set up a foundation, and I approached you, and he's like, or I approached you, like their competitiveness is still like there, right, in this little moment, of course. And then he says like, he's like, well, you really think this far ahead? And he's like, I do, about this. And he's like, and that's what you want? You want us to be together for real? And he's like, I do. So much it scares me, I think is the line. And then Ilya turns away and he's crying. Like for the second time, we see Ilya crying. And then he turns back and he says, I love you in Russian twice. And then he says, I love you out loud. To which Shane replies, holy shit, which is, I don't think what Ilya was hoping Shane was going to say. It's not the response you want when you tell someone you love them for the first time. And then he starts to back away, right? He says, I mean, like he was going to take it back. And then Shane says, I love you too. And then he's like, okay. The relief.
So much of this stepping back, more of like a surprised he said it first, admitted it, because I think Shane felt it and knew it and had tried to kind of broach that topic a couple of times in previous episodes. I mean, even episode, was it 5 or 4? I can't remember which one. I think it was 5. And maybe 4 also, about having feelings or whatever.
Well, definitely in 5, he tells him in the hotel, I can't pretend I don't like you anymore. I like you maybe a little too much, And then Ilya's like, no, you don't like me, I mean, look, obviously they know they like each other. Like he knows Shane likes him. Duh. But it's vulnerable. It's the first time he's ever said I love you to someone, right? you know,
Yeah.
and it's Shane. Like he will die if Shane doesn't also love him, you know, and vice versa.
Well, he's already been, left by his mother and rejected by his father and rejected by his brother. And it's
Right.
like
He's a
another rejection would be devastating for him.
Yeah, and even Svetlana, in a way, she doesn't reject him, but she's like, I know you don't
This,
really want to be with me. So
yeah.
even she's like, I'm taking myself out of this equation. I will always be here for you, but we're not a thing. You want to be with somebody else, you know? And so this is it. This is his like, this is it for him. Which he's like, he could be with a million people and he has, but all he wants is Shane. I mean, so, you know, and who could blame him? So then yeah, they're kind of like in this moment, they're both in tears. And Shane's like, does it fucking kill you too? And then Ilya says, not anymore,
Yes. Oh, which
which is
was
sweet.
lovely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's like a moment of acceptance, I think, on their both of their part. And then we get the morning where he's down smoking by the lake, and
I
Shane,
love that scene. He comes out, Shane brings the blanket, wraps around his shoulders,
yeah,
and
and
hands him a cup of coffee.
coffee, yeah. And in contrast to like and the beach in Tampa when it was sunset and they had to be like look around and not be the way they wanted to be. Now it's the sun is coming up and they get to be like on the dock under the blanket together, looking at somebody else's boat garage.
I did not notice that.
I
That's so
know, they should
funny.
have just CGI'd that out of the shot because, like, it's like, wait, your privacy. I don't know. Again, it's only because I've watched this too many times, but then I start having like intrusive thoughts, you know, where I'm like, what doing? Somebody can see you. It's not safe. I know. And then they come back to bed and then they actually make love for the first time, right? If you want to make that distinction. And they had this conversation, which they have that conversation in the book, but they're not having it during sex in the book. And they've flipped who says what. In the book, that every one of these lines is said by the other person, but like, how did we let this happen? And it's because we're very irresponsible, you know? And then, but it's real, right? Like, this is real. I'm not imagining this. And he says yes. And then they're both a little lost in the sauce, as people like to say. And then, okay, afterwards, and maybe when you go reheat this episode the 50 times that you will, afterwards, Ilya's lying on his back and he's just got this expression on his face that I cannot read. Like, it almost reads as panic to me. Like, it doesn't read as like contentment. He changes into contentment when Shane asks his mom's name and suggests naming their foundation after the mom, or at least that the foundation would donate to causes because of the mom. And he says, you know, she would love you the way I love you. But before then, like, I don't know what that look is on his face. Like, what do you think?
I wish I had watched it more than once now, but I had
Right.
to wait since we recorded late.
And then you didn't have time to rewatch it.
Yeah, I feel like, to me, from what I remember exactly, I feel like it was just a lot of thoughts streaming through his head. I mean, this is a huge
Yeah.
discussion, right? I mean, we're
Hmm.
talking about forever here. So, or at
Right.
least long-term permanence,
Hmm. Hmm.
semi-permanence, whatever. So it's like, God, what he's not going to go back to his country. He's going to have to get a new citizenship in a different country. Like, he's going to, he's putting all of his eggs in one basket.
Right.
There's a lot to think about. And
There
a lot
is.
of the sacrifices on his end. It's not on Shane's. And that could create resentment or tension at some point. On the other hand, he so thoroughly is disgusted with his family and with the way Russia would view him as a criminal for being himself,
Yeah.
that,
How much he's thinking about Russia here, because again, you remember in his love confession montage thing in Russia, the monologue, he's like, I hate it here. I never want to
yeah,
come back to this
yeah,
place.
yeah.
But I think all the other stuff you're saying, and without
I think
giving any spoilers for season 2, for sure, like he is giving up a lot,
he
right?
is. That's the thing, is like, it's one thing to say, I hate this place. It's
Yeah.
another thing to sign away your citizenship. Like, that's
Right.
just a different, or any opportunity of ever going back. That's a
Right.
whole other level of commitment.
Right. And also to like leave his team that, you know, drafted him and that he's been with since he was 19 years old. And like he has friends on that team. He's good friends with Marlo. He's
Yeah.
good friends with
Yeah.
the other guys, probably. He knows the city. He has his Svetlana's there. He has his house.
Be starting over in a lot of ways for him.
Yeah.
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 It's big.
And even though he would be 2 hours away from Shane, like the NHL schedule is brutal. Like they play
It is brutal.
82 games. They play 3 to 4 times a week. they're like playing in a different place every other day, often lots of travel. Like it's a long season. Like, it's October to April is a regular season. There's preseason that starts at the end of August with workouts and preseason games, and then most teams make the playoffs, and so that goes on into, if you make it all the way into June. So like when Shane at one point says I have 2 weeks off a year and I don't want to spend it in Wimbledon, he's not joking. Like he really does have only a couple of weeks off in the whole year. And so even that interim plan that they've come up with is like they're not going to see each other that much. So yeah, that's actually
the
laying
reality of someone who lives on the road, you know?
Yeah. That's laying a lot of pipe for some stuff that's going to go down in the next season, I think. But then they go to the lake again, and Ilya's like frolicking in the lake. And I don't know if you noticed, but of course, very Canadian of me, he had lake shoes, which for sure Shane bought him lake shoes because like the lakes are all, it's rocks, it's rocky. So you put lake shoes on to go swimming.
Nice anyway, even when because then it's like silty gross on your feet. So,
yes. Yeah. Shane's sitting on the rock and he's like, give me a kiss. He like kisses his foot and he's like, oh, it's cold. Me. Anyway. And then they're walking back to the house and talking about what they want for lunch. And then they start kissing and then, David is there.
I was like, no! Oh my God! Dad walks in.
I remember thinking, like, why are we watching this through the windows as my brain was catching up? And I'm like, oh, someone's going to be in the house. Someone's going to be in the house. And I was like, oh, shit. Yeah. Oh, my God. Poor Shane.
Poor Shane. It made my stomach drop when he reacted to the dad. It's like when you're a teenager and you got caught doing something you're not supposed to do and you just know your life is over. Your parents are going to be... I had that feeling of like, yeah,
that's what Shane had. And interestingly, I saw Jacob talking about this scene recently about how when he originally shot the scene, he thought that Hudson was overacting this scene. He thought it was too much. It's not what he envisioned the scene as. But he was also like, okay, let him cook. I can probably like fix this in the editing room and whatever. And then when they actually got to the edit, they were like, oh, no. This is good. And, I'm sure you think about this, Heather. One of the things as a writer that's important to do with your characters is to make them overreact in some situations and underreact in others, because like that is how you round out your characters. And I think that I don't think he's overreacting, first of all.
No.
Right?
No.
It fits the lines. The lines are like, this is my nightmare.
Yeah, I don't think it's overreacting at all.
No, it is his nightmare. It's exactly what he was like the most worried about, is it coming out to his parents, because he feels like he's lied to them, for so long about everything about himself. And now like it's all out in the open. And this is literally like the morning after the I love you, the same day.
Yeah, it's a big deal. It's a really big deal.
It's a big deal.
But they handled it, I think, in the most perfect way, which we kind of knew that all along. Because his parents were so supportive, even though his mom was a little bit of a rabid dog about, like,
Yeah.
You have all these sponsorships and you have blah, 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 and you did it, all that stuff all along the way. But she was still also like, you need to have fun, Shane. So you knew that she was supportive.
Yeah. But I think what's important in this scene is the way that Ilya is supportive. He's just
It is. That's the most important thing. Yeah.
It's just like, okay, you're going to be okay. You can wake up, it is scary, but you're brave, which is a callback to the previous episode when Shane gives him his front door code and he's like, oh, brave. There he was teasing him, but here he's like, no, you're brave. You can do this. Like you're...
I did laugh though when he said maybe they didn't notice.
Maybe maybe he didn't notice.
Really a comment right there.
It was good. It lightened the moment. Shane did smile. And then when Shane's like, well, what am I going to say to them? And he's like, you want me to come? And he's like, would you? And he's like, of course. Like, we're in this together, buddy. What don't you get about that at this point? Like, I'm here with you. And then he goes and gets changed. And then I love when Ilya comes out wearing his Boston Raiders shirt. Like, that was intentional. Well, that's gonna help. Yeah, but it's so intentional, right? He's like, that's not going to help. And he's like, what? Do you think they don't know I play for Boston? Like it's a bit of... And then just in the car ride over, he's like soothing Shane, right? Like,
very sweet.
Yeah, the musical choice too is really great in that scene. But yeah, he's like, rubbing his hand, and then they get there, and then Shane's like, maybe you should wait here. And Ilya just looks at him like, hell no. And Shane's like, okay. Which is so awkward. Like, I think about it, I'm like, I couldn't actually imagine being in a situation where I got caught by my parents in a compromising situation. And now I'm going to go with that person to talk to my parents. Like, it's such an interesting choice, but the scene is kind of
It's the
everything.
grown-up choice. I
It
mean,
is. It is. It is. Yeah,
it's
it
like
is.
they know I can't just hide it now, and I'm how
Right.
old? 25? Like, I gotta go talk to them. I can't just
Yeah.
pretend like this didn't happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's 25. And then the parents are clearly been waiting for him to come. And then I love when he like knocks on the door. He's like, "Hello, it's me, Shane." And in my head, I always hear him say, "Your son,"
Right?
even though that's not what he says.
Like, who the hell else would it be?
I
But
know, who
okay.
else would it be? They saw you walking up, Shane. Like, hello, nobody, And he's like, like I'm sorry you saw that or whatever. Like, dad immediately starts to apologize. I'm sorry I left my charger there. I tried to call, blah blah blah. That was the phone calls when Ilya says your phone's been ringing all morning, and he's like, I was going to tell you, and then Yuna's like, tell us what. And people, I don't know, I think, again, media literacy, but a lot of people online are like, well, that means David didn't tell Yuna what he saw. And I'm like, no, 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 no. She just wants to hear it from Shane.
Yeah,
Like,
that's what I think. She wants him to step up to the plate and say what he needs to say.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then, but he's just like, I'm gay, which
He's just immediately
yeah, I'm gay, and which I was going to tell you soon. And this is Ilya Rozanov, but you already know that. And yeah, like just the way Ilya is standing there, like a little boy, like with his shoulders like hunched and
he
his
does seem like
hands.
a little boy,
He
doesn't he?
was this complete opposite of like Ilya Rozanov, like he's just like,
Well, this is the boy that wants to be accepted by his parents. That's who we see standing there.
mm-hmm.
And who never was accepted by his own parents. I
Yeah.
mean, his mom to some degree, but again, she leaves him through her suicide. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. No, it's for sure. And he just the physicality of like one of the things that's so amazing about Connor's story. And I think Hudson is fantastic in this role and is playing someone different than him, but like Connor's story disappears into this role. Like his voice is at a different pitch. His facial expression, he literally makes his face look Slavic, which it doesn't look like in normal life. And like just the physicality, he does mime in real life. And I think that, and clown work and stuff. And you can kind of see that physicality come through here. So again, we're seeing a different Ilya, even physically, than we've seen even with him and Shane. And then, Shane's just like, I just want to like, can we, he has that great line where the mom is like, but you hate him. And he's like, no, I understand why you think that, but I love him. And again, like just the total honesty of that in this moment.
Just
But
very direct.
very direct. And then he's like, can we just sit down and talk about this? And, I love all the conversations in the house, which are like, there were no nice men in Montreal. That comes a bit later. But
That was
first,
funny.
yeah, I mean, I love like, okay, so when did this start? How long have you guys been together? And then the dad's like, oh,
Oh, the chemistry
the
for the game, the All-Star
chemistry at the
game.
All-Star
Right.
game. And then
He's like, no,
nope.
before that.
Before that, and then Ilya's smirking face. Ilya's like, oh, no, 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 no. And then he's like, no, it was before that. Okay, since when? Since our rookie season? And the mom is like, rookie season? And then Ilya is like, no, it was before that, actually. He's being very Shane-like in the details. It's like summer before.
Yeah.
Like,
He is actually. He's so just out there with it.
And that's the use of the word lovers. Again, I think there's a misunderstanding in the fandom. So, when Ilya says we're lovers, a lot of people are like, oh, he just doesn't understand English. He thinks it means when you're in love with someone, you're lovers. And I'm like, no, Ilya understands what lovers means because when they get asked at the table by the mom, it's like, you've been in love since your rookie season? And they're like, no, 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 no. And he's going to say just lovers. And then Yuna fills in the blank, like, well, you were sleeping together since rookie season. You weren't in love since rookie season. So Ilya understands the difference between in love and lovers. Like, it's just, I don't know why people are so invested in that narrative. And then we have the like coming out scene between Yuna and Shane outside, which is really important, I think. I feel for Yuna in this moment because Yuna is realizing how wrong she was about Shane. Like if you want to go back to the Reeboks, right? Like she gets him a Reebok deal. He doesn't wear Reeboks. He wears Nikes. He has a Rolex deal. He never wears a Rolex in this whole show or anything that looks like a Rolex. Like they could have bought a fake Rolex. It's not a budget thing. Instead, he's wearing like an Apple Watch, like he's like And it's just so, and he's drinking when she got him the Fanta, like the orange crush drink, but he drinks Diet Coke or he drinks Coke, you know, like every single endorsement opportunity that we've seen him do, or even that underwear shoot where you're like, this is so not Shane, like walking around in his underwear, which are not the kind of underwear that Shane wears. So like every single endorsement that she gets for him is so different than his actual personality and likes and wants. And I think she's just like, how could I not know? And then how could, we're so close. What did I do that he couldn't tell me? And then for Shane to like apologize and sort of say like, I tried not to be gay for
I know,
you.
that was so heartbreaking.
So heartbreaking. And then, you know, her reaction, of course, is fantastic, which is like, no, 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 no. I'm sorry. You know, I'm so, and then he says, I forgive you, Mom. And the way she holds his face, because again, this comes back to him being on the spectrum. Like, no, look at me, look at me. This is probably something she did a lot when they were kids, when he was a kid. To like eye contact, like, no, look at me, look at me. And Ilya does that with Shane too, but he doesn't say look at me. He just holds his face and he makes Shane look at him. But yeah, this is a beautiful scene. I didn't cry, but I almost cried. It was, you know, I know you cried twice in this episode. Was this one of the
I
scenes?
did. I cried with the I love yous, and I did
Yeah.
cry when the mom and Shane were hugging and,
Yeah.
you know, having the discussion.
It's very sweet. And then they go back inside for lunch. And I love that scene too. Like Ilya is just shoveling pasta in his
He's
face.
just being a guy who's hungry and
He's hungry. And then this was done at the end of the shoot and he hadn't been eating carbs for like 6 weeks. And so he was just like, I'm going to eat all the pasta. So he was actually eating plate after plate of pasta, apparently, in the takes. And then again, the mom is like, you know, you would move to Ottawa for Shane? And he's like, yeah, you're not loyal to Boston. My mom likes hockey too much. And Ilya's like, oh, I see where you get it from. Like,
Yeah.
he loves the whole dynamic. And like, David's like handing him Parmesan and, you know, for his pasta. I think also the whole like thing where David's asking him, like, I'm just surprised. Like, all I heard about was you and women. And then they both say, well, I've only ever been in love with one person before. Like, they're just like, they're so like, okay, well, we can just talk about this. It's okay.
It's
Nothing's
very out in the open all of a sudden. I mean, that
Yeah.
moment being caught was probably the best thing that could have happened, right? As hard
Agree.
as it was. Yeah.
Agree. I also like how when they're like, well, you guys are just gonna like hide until you retire. Like,
And how sad that
that's
is.
so
And the
sad.
mom says that.
I
That's so
know.
sad, which I love that she said that, to be like, there's got to be something better than this, you know?
Yeah, and it reminds me back to like how I felt when I watched the first episode of the show. And I was like, this show is sad. Like, because I was seeing that. I was seeing that this is going to be years and years and years of them hiding. And I was like, yikes, you know, that's sad. But it's still hopeful, I think. I mean, ultimately, this ends on a hopeful note, I think, here with this, you know, that he's loyal to Shane. He's willing to do this for Shane. Like, he's okay with it. And,
It
you know,
definitely has a hopeful ending, I think.
yeah.
It was a really beautiful episode, very emotional in a different way. You know, angst is all tossed aside, but like you said, there's a lot of pipe laid for conflict for the next season. I mean, them having to work out, do we come out or not? Do you move here or not? And how is that all going to go down? Yeah.
Yeah, and if I think like try to divorce what I know. And just sorry, there's the last little scene where they're leaving and the parents like, okay, we're coming over for dinner. And they're like, please text. And then the dad's like, please watch your phones. Walking in on you was enough. I don't want that to happen again.
Yes.
And
yes.
then
they're like, no, it's fine. No, please,
please
text.
text. Please text. They both say it. And then their like car ride literally off into the sunset. They actually ride off into the sunset, which is how we also ended The Summer I Turned Pretty. So yeah, a hopeful moment to Bad Things by Kaylin Russo, which is interesting. I want to do bad things with you is a lyric. And it's like, oh, but it's not bad things anymore. It's interesting juxtaposition to use that song, but we'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, lots of pipe for season 2. Lots of like, as you say, do they both come out? If they both come out, they have to announce they're in a relationship. I don't see them being in that space.
Yeah. No,
right?
I don't think so. Yeah.
I think they've made it pretty clear. And so I think they're going to announce the friendship and the foundation. Like that's laying the groundwork. I think, you know, without spoiling anything, because it doesn't actually happen in the book, but Jacob has said it will happen in the show. Shane is going to come out to his team. So not like publicly, but to his team. But if Shane comes out and Ilya comes out and they're friends, people would make the
Right.
you know,
Jump.
the jump. Yeah. And the funny thing is in the books, again, without giving anything away, but every time anybody comes out in one of the books, people are always immediately are like, are you dating Ilya Rozanov? But even though Rozanov is not out, people leap to Rozanov all the time. Like, I think they do it with Scott Hunter and another character. It's like, what about Ilya is giving off bisexual or gay energy to people, or like immediately think about him when someone comes
he's
out?
a prowler.
He is a prowler.
He's got a
sensuality to him.
He does.
Yes.
It rolls off of him.
Yeah.
You know, so I could see where they might think that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, how does this all go down? Again, like I know what happens in the books, but without spoiling for you, because I know you're not going to read book 2 right now. Yeah. How does it all go down? Like, what choices are they going to be making? And what's the tension going to be? So the narrative tension here is, are they ever going to figure out a way to be together, right? Are they going to be able to overcome their obstacles that are keeping them apart and admit to each other how they feel and come together as a couple? Narratively in season 2, I guess it's going to be like, can they ever be publicly a couple? Yes or no? You know?
Yeah, I think it's the same question, like you said, just public or not. Yeah.
But like, what's going to be the Chekhov's gun that's going to, make that happen, right? So like here we had the mention at the beginning of like, oh, your parents aren't even going to come over. Of course, one of the parents came over.
I wonder if it's something with the brother.
Interesting. Yeah, maybe. The brother has information.
He does. And that could really bust things up for Ilya.
That could. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so like
what at the end of the day, that would do him wrong too, because Ilya is, has been paying for his life, isn't anymore allegedly.
Right.
But he's still setting something up for his niece. So like, do you really want to throw your brother under the bus like that?
Yeah, what would he have to gain by doing that though?
That's the thing.
Yeah, I think like that you just how to guarantee your brother never gives you another cent is to out him.
Right.
So I don't think it's going to be the brother in that way, but I am curious if they're going to try and repair that relationship in season 2, because
I would like that for Ilya.
I would like that for Ilya too.
I think that feels satisfying as a viewer,
Yeah. I have a feeling like Shane's family is going to become his sort of found family, but there is something about, and they even bring up the brother, right? When they're sitting around the fire, like, have you talked to your brother? No. Is that good? Maybe. I don't know. So he was going back to Russia. At the end of episode 5, he ends up not going. So like, are they just going to leave that, or are they going to handle that in some way? That's going to be interesting. We've also had mention of, so there's 6 books, there's going to be a 7th. And in this season, we had one of the books Scott interpreted, right? With the Scott Hunter and Kip story. So like, are we going to see Scott and Kip again? I mentioned at the beginning of this episode that one of the bartender at Kip's bar is a character in one of the books. We've heard mention of another person. Remember when in the Tuna Meltdown, when they're watching hockey and he talks about Ryan Price?
Yes.
And he's like the guy who gets traded every season. So that guy is also in one of the books.
Okay. So he might pop up.
So he might pop up.
Svetlana, is she done? I feel like, okay.
I don't know.
She's going to have something, but maybe not.
Well, they've made, so again, I don't want to spoil it for you, but like, I think I can spoil this for you. In the book, Svetlana is not a childhood friend. She's someone he met in Boston who is Russian. And they have this sort of, situationship, like, and he has a car collection of expensive cars, and she is a car dealer of expensive cars, like works in one of those like Lamborghini dealerships or whatever. And so they meet and they become friends and they do become lovers and that. But she doesn't have the same central role in his life that she has in the show. She does show up for like a cameo in the second book in an important moment, but that moment doesn't work anymore with the changes that they've made to the show. So I'm very curious what they're going to do with her.
Yeah,
For sure they're bringing her back. Like she's so great. Their relationship is so great. She has to come back in some way. But she's going to be in Boston and he's going to be in Ottawa. So like, how's that going to work? But I feel confident she's going to be at least in one episode. And they could take the role that she plays in the second book and just tweak it. Anyway, there's this, of all the characters, she's the most different. And then is Rose Landry going to be in season 2? She's become the sort of Svetlana of Shane's life. So is she going to be there? I would love to see them all hanging out together. That could be fun.
That would be fun, actually. I wonder how that would go. I could see Banter being excellent.
Yes. And I could see Ilya saying, if I was writing that scene, Ilya would be like, well, the only person, like, I haven't slept with you, Rose, so, just fair is fair or something, like as a joke,
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
just to, like, goose Shane, and he'd be like, well, I haven't slept with Svetlana, and it's like, no, we know you don't want to do that. This dialogue is bad, but I could write it better than that.
Yeah. No, I obviously know what you mean.
Obviously.
Yeah.
I would love to see Svetlana and Yuna meet because those two are like, they're always obsessed with hockey. And like, I think they could be very funny together in a scene, like instant,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
That's interesting.
Their like hockey obsession, I think it'd be fun. So yeah, I'm curious what other book I mentioned, probably this book called Role Model, because Ilya does move to Ottawa. So on that team, there is another story that's going on in one of the books that Ilya plays a really pivotal role in. So I'm sure that's going to be the main other book that's incorporated into the season. But it'll be
Probably.
interesting to see what else. And there's always that pressure of like, how are we going to bring Scott Hunter back? Like, it's easy with Scott because they can play against Scott and, he can be around. But I don't really think we're going to get any like big updates on his relationship with Kip.
Yeah, I don't see there being big conflict that we would buy into,
No,
really.
I don't think so. So yeah, I think that's the main conflict is going to be like their
Yeah.
public coming out and how that's going to happen. Is that going to be a choice? Are they going to be on the same page about when to do it? And how to do it like that.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a lot of conflict about that. And then, as you said, Ilya's giving up like everything to move and be closer to Shane, but he's
It's
going
a
to be
lot.
very isolated.
He is. That's a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
You better be worth it, Shane.
I definitely see that being the source of conflict.
Yeah.
Even if it's not a long-term one, if it's just sort of the initial.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, how is Hayden going to react to Shane being gay? Or if he finds out that Shane is with Ilya Rozanov? What's going to happen there?
It's been nice so far that everyone in the show is really supportive of, the boys
Yeah.
coming out in general and people being gay or bisexual or whatever. I
Yeah.
love that sort of openness. But the reality is you're going to have people that aren't open. So there's plenty of room for conflict if you bring that in.
100%.
Don't know if that's what they want the show to be about. So it may not happen, but I just feel like, especially in the hockey world, there's got to be some people that.
For sure. There's got
Yeah.
to be some conflict around that. That's just not realistic. And they
Yeah.
do want the show to be a show about queer joy. But even though this ends in a joyous place, it's not without its devastating
Yeah.
moments along the way, right?
For
So
sure.
I think we're going to have a similar journey in season 2. And then I'm more curious really about the book, like the third book, because I know where this second season ends, of like, what is the conflict going to be in the third book? Because I don't even know. Like, I have a hard time seeing what it could possibly be. But anyway, yeah,
We'll get there when we get
we'll
there.
get there when we get there. Yeah. So I think, that's the journey from beginning to end.
It is. And it was a beautiful, tear-inducing, angst-inducing journey. I loved it. It was such a great show. I enjoyed the book, but I really loved the show. I thought the actors and the director brought so much to it to sort of elevate it
It elevated it for
in
sure.
a bunch of
Yeah.
ways. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
gripping and beautiful and wonderfully shot and, every little detail perfectly thought out. Like you can really see it,
I think it really is one of the most faithful book adaptations to TV show also. Like, in the sense that so much of the dialogue is lifted directly from the books. There are changes, which I think are all good changes, but like it really is taking the words that were on the page and then just putting them in the hands of these beautiful actors, and the cinematography and all that stuff is really impressive. I think there's a lot in the third season of Summer I Turned Pretty, which is lifted directly from the books in the same way. And the general arcs are very similar to the books, but there was a lot of other changes that happened, like big structural changes. So it's like the same story. It feels like the same story told in a different way, I would say, to me, even though it's the same writer that did both of them. Like Jenny Han interpreted her own books. I feel like the show is the same journey for these characters, but the characters feel different, and the journey, the way they get there is different emotionally. And then this, I feel like it's the same. It's just the way it's imagined. It's just so much better, or so much bigger. I think I don't want to use the word better. It's bigger. It's bigger.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And it's because the emphasis too is on the, what the books are a genre, right? They are And all genres, particularly the romance genre, has like specific beats and notes that you have to hit. And the show is something that I think takes the genre and focuses in more on the emotional aspect. Like, yes, you watch for this. I think they've said themselves, like at the beginning, you're watching for the sex, but then you stay for the emotions. And in the books, the sex and the emotions continue in equal measure through the books. But in the show, we really pull back from the sex, and it really just becomes about the emotions and this love story told in reverse. But who do you think fell first? Who do you think fell first?
But he didn't know it.
Interesting.
I don't know, because then I'm like, I don't know. Ilya knew all along that he was bisexual and that Shane didn't realize that he's at the very least gay, if not bisexual. I mean, Shane's really out of touch with his emotions, but there's a point when Shane is much more honest about how he feels about Ilya. Like he gets frustrated that Ilya constantly is being Mr. Put It Off funny guy when he tries to broach anything resembling a real conversation. And that's like episode 2, 3, and beginning of 4, you see so I don't know. Maybe it's simultaneous. I'm not sure, but they just experience it differently. It comes to them differently.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think Ilya fell first, personally, because Ilya is the pursuer.
He is.
Ilya is like, he gets the commercial thing. He's like, no, October, that's too far to when I'm seeing Shane. He creates a situation where they will be alone together doing this commercial shoot, and then pursues Shane through that whole episode to their first time together. And then he's pursues Shane for 2 years before they have like full sex, right? He's the one who's like, I still want you, I still want you, I still want you. And Shane is like putting on the brakes. I'm not saying that Shane doesn't have feelings for him. He definitely does. But I don't know. That's my feeling.
I think Ilya is coming at it from sort of a typical dude way, which is the sexual attraction first and the conquest mixed with that chemistry and the rivalry that they have. And it does develop, obviously, from there. But I feel like Shane, I think it's something else entirely. For him, it's a coming to understand who he is. And in the midst of that, he can't really grasp who he is until he realizes he has feelings for someone. Because it wouldn't just be the sex. I mean, he could deny it for a while. And he did deny it until he realized, I really like this guy.
Right.
I must be gay. And Rose is a problem. So, I actually think I think I stand by that. I think he realized it first. Maybe not love, but certainly there's feelings. There's more than just screwing around.
Yeah. I mean, look, he acted out of character their very first interaction, right? We learn right after their first conversation in Saskatchewan from the announcers that Shane is antisocial, not the most sociable person, which is other words for autistic or whatever. But we just saw him being sociable. We saw him initiate the interaction with Ilya. So you could make the case for he fell first.
And it honestly simultaneous. Yes, it just differently. It looks different for each of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. But they're so vehement in their denial. One thing I want to see come back in season 2, just to end on this, is they're so vehement in their denial to the parents that they were been in love that whole time. They're both like, oh, no. But yes, you have been in love this whole time. And I want a moment where they acknowledge that, where it was like, you know what, actually we said no, but yes, we were. I want that. I want to see that. I want to know.
That could be.
It could be a nice moment.
It could be a nice moment for sure. Very sweet.
Yeah. And one last musical note. So when they're in the car going to the cottage the first time, the song that's playing is L'Anarchie des Jours Heureux, which is the theme song from a show here in Canada called Le Chalet, which is the cottage in French. Yeah. So, isn't that cute? So it's not a song that I knew because I didn't actually watch that show, but there was a lot of online oh my God, it's the theme song from Le Chalet, so it's a nice little, a Canadiana nod, which is nice. Yes. Yeah. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of season 1 of The Winter I Went to the Cottage. We may or may not be back for special episodes or some updates if we get them, when we know more about what's happening. And for sure, if we get our interstitial episode, we will be back for that.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening. For those of you who are also listening to The Summer I Turned Swiftie, we are starting our season 3 rewatch this week. So you have homework, my friends. Go watch episode 1 of season 3. And if you were skipping season 2, because I can't blame you, it was painful.
That's where I'm at with that. I got stranded in season 2.
Now you could just skip over. Start season 3. There's nothing you need to know. I can fill you in on any questions you might have. The best season of the show by far is season 3. Season 1 is great. Season 3 is next level, especially the finale. Season 2 is just something that had to happen.
Yeah, it's like a bridge.
It's a bridge season. Yeah. I mean, the acting's still great and there's great writing and all this stuff, but it's just, if you're Team Conrad, which I assume you are, it's a painful watch. So anyway, we're in season 3. So please join us and thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.